Hi guys, welcome to May 5th. This is our live art class where we are going to be discussing the 1950s and the art that is in the 1950s. Real quick, I want to go over, if you are not a part of the Google Classroom, you need to make sure that you are a part of that. Let's see, desktop, yes please. All right, our classroom looks like this. If you guys need the code, it's right here. Go zoom in, ooh, there's the code. Code looks like this. You have a stream of different announcements that go out from me or other people if they want to share their work. And for people to ask questions. If you're not sure where to find stuff, if you click here on classwork, it lists out our assignments. So the 1950s, I just went ahead and uploaded the PowerPoint so that people weren't too confused and could join the live class or watch it before you start doing this. Also shows any work that is past due and stuff that is coming up. The stuff that's grayed out, you can't access yet because I haven't scheduled it yet. I'm not entirely sure if you can even see it yet. The recreating the paintings, I still don't have some of you guys. Make sure you're turning this in for full credit, as well as the 1940s artwork. Turn it in, get your grades. Great. Before I start with that, anybody have a question? If you do, please type it into the chat box. No, no questions, nothing? Okay. All right, so we're gonna look at the 1950s. So 50s, we're coming out of the war. We are in a new kind of time frame, right? So the art of the 1950s is a lot different than what we saw beforehand. Happy birthday, Alexis. Everybody type happy birthday to Alexis. By the way, her birthday was yesterday. All right, so the 1950s. So slowly the world starts recovering from trauma that happened. New art movements begin to develop worldwide. Major influence from the 1950s comes from the 1920s avant-garde movement, dealing with modernism, surrealism, and abstract painting. But what is avant-garde art, you might ask? Well, we have a little quick couple of minute video to watch on that. Let me know if you guys can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up if you can in your little boxes.
Emerging in the mid-19th century, the avant-garde received their name for their fighting spirit. Avant-garde is French for vanguard, a military term used to describe the front line of an army moving into battle. Artists were compared with these soldiers, as they were often a group force, challenging long-established concepts and ideas about art, and fighting an entrenched establishment. Artists such as Courbet, Gauguin, and Kirchner were regarded with great hostility because they pushed accepted boundaries. As these establishments denied the work public exposure, the avant-garde fought this censorship of their art. Works like this by Ernst Kirchner convey freedom, energy, feeling through their brushstrokes and vivid colours. This new approach marked Kirchner as an avant-garde artist, though in his German homeland, the Nazis considered him a degenerate artist, an unsettling term with unsettling implications. Do you find this painting groundbreaking, challenging, worthy of censorship? Kirchner's expressionism might have challenged the prevailing styles and authority of the time, but reads very differently to a contemporary eye. Anna Huch was another German artist breaking new ground in the early 20th century. She was an early creator of photomontage art, collages of pasted photographs. We see a tribal mask, a baby's torso, an eye from a fashion magazine, an eclectic selection. The figure is mounted on little feet as if on display, representing treatment of women in Weimar Germany as inferior and infantile, yet put on a pedestal. The geometric background is almost a cage. Huey was a radical who blazed a trail for photo collage, but was also a pioneer for her gender. Avant-garde artists challenge and sometimes provoke us through satire. Many would argue that Picasso's work remains radical. In Bottling Glass on a Table, the bottle is a piece of newspaper on which stenciled letters spell Old Jar, short for Old Jamaica Rum. Writing the subject name on the canvas rather than carefully copying its physical form was revolutionary. If newspaper can become a bottle, then what is reality? Damien Hirst was a member of the YBAs, or Young British Artists, a more recent group that embodied the avant-garde spirit. Their work highlights the speed at which art moves from disrupting the status quo to becoming accepted into mainstream culture. Hirst's revolutionary Natural History series takes animal bodies and suspends them in formaldehyde. They appear alive and caught in movement. The work examines life's fragility and the inevitability of death and disintegration. The emotion of the work is heightened by how banal the animals are. If it were a tiger or a lion suspended at the point of death, the work would read completely differently. Like life, the avant-garde is fragile and fleeting, a moment that risks being overtaken almost as soon as it is experienced. Rather than see it as a tragedy, let's be excited by the thought that today's avant-garde may be familiar, conventional, or even cliched tomorrow.
All right, that is avant-garde. So that's what the 1950s art is based off of. I love this quote. With the avant-garde, challenging long-established concepts and ideas about art and fighting an entrenched society. This really, really shows with the 1950s. So 1950s, the world was split into two. We had Russia with the communisms and everybody that backed communism. And then we had America with capitalism. We were going head to head with Russia all the time, you know, between like our way is better, the space race, everything was this race against Russia at the time. So we got these like really interesting propaganda posters and print advertisements that happened at the time. Right. So again, 1950, Soviet Union and United States entered the nuclear and space race. A lot of third world countries started to boom. So the Soviet Union and the United States would kind of compete for which way was going to go for these third world countries. Because of this, the art popped up the way it did. I get a lot of questions when I teach art of the 1950s of like, why is this even a thing? The reason being the United States wanted to show that we embrace new things. The Soviet Union hated abstract expressionism, so therefore Americans loved abstract expressionism, right? And that's why. So it became this political tool and this political kind of race on, you know, bringing other societies in. So America backed that as being like the next big movement. It turns out both things would actually be wrong on that. So here's an example of the propaganda and political posters, right? You can see America's versus USSR's, right? With America under socialism and scaring of the atomic bomb and war, used a lot of political satire and cartoons and posters to try and sway the public, and both did. All right, so there's two main movements that popped up in the 1950s. The one we're going to look at this decade, which is abstract expressionism, and then pop art started in the late 50s, but we are actually going to look at that next week during the 1960s. So our artist we have is, let's start with Helena here, or Helen. I said Helena. All right, this is an example of Helen's abstract expressionism. Again, people have strong opinions and strong feelings of abstract expressionism. Right. This is an example. These are all very famous artists. These are seen throughout many different museums, they sell for, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. This that I'm fixing to show you, this is Rothko. He painted squares and rectangles. We'll get there, Abe. So here's an example of Rothko, my son's least favorite artist in history. He's very much of the why is this even art movement, right? It is very odd, simple. It is also appealing in its odd simplicity. He has a huge museum in Denver that you can go to. Again, abstract expressionism, so it's just about provoking feelings and thoughts, not necessarily anything that's tangible or something that you can see. Right. A lot of this is, again, just provoking those kind of feelings. And, I did not like Pollock until I was older and had to do research on Jackson Pollock. He's the one who flung paint at the canvases. But it wasn't just flinging paint for him. He would actually spend hours. These are bigger than I am. They're huge. He would have to wear harnesses and suspend himself from the ceiling. And every line was very intentional. So even though it looks like my 4-year-old sister could do this and just sling, until I learned about his process, I didn't appreciate his work until I was older. But again, it was very, very deliberate, every movement. Sometimes he would spend an hour even thinking of which way a line would go for him. So I think that in itself makes it, right, kind of interesting. Again, they're huge. He would often like smoke while he was doing these, and they would fall when he was in his harnesses into the paint, like cigarette butts would fall into the paint. So if you actually look at a lot of his artwork, you can find like cigarette butts still in the canvas, just FYI, or like paintbrushes he would have dropped. Little fun fact on Pollock there. And then Mr. William here, de Kooning. Kooning would go ahead and do the human form. Here's an example of his abstract expressionism, right? Again, very interesting. Hey, somebody found the draw tool. So these are the artists that we are looking at. These are the major representatives of abstract expressionism, right? Again, we'll look at pop art next week. That deserves its own week. So Bryant asked about our assignment, like, are we using this for our assignment? All right, so assignment 1, this is due on Sunday in Google Classrooms. You have to turn it into Google Classrooms if you want credit. Emailing it to me will not get you credit. Right now, you guys need to realize I am getting about 40 to 50 emails a day from just students. So it is so easy to get lost in my inbox. I need you guys' help to put it, yeah, it's a lot. Crazier than normal. So I need you guys to really help me out and make sure you're putting it in Google Classrooms so I have it all in one place. That's just easy for me right now. So our first assignment, you guys are going to create a slideshow comparing and contrasting two of our abstract expressionist artists that we talked about now. So what does that mean on a slideshow looking at the compare and contrasting? Like always, I try to lay it out exactly what you need. So when you're looking at your artists, you are going to do your title page of the artist. You're going to present a piece of artwork. This lined mess. Right, artist name, where were they born, any important dates that might have influenced the artist. What type does the artist actually prefer? Like who's their favorite artworks? The favorite subjects of their artworks, if there is a subject of their artwork. Explain why the artist wanted to become an artist. What's their inspiration? Describe the artist's family, include other interesting facts about the artist. Discuss if you like the artist's work. It's fine to say, no, I don't like it, but tell me why. No, I don't like the way Jackson Pollock used so many different lines. I find it confusing and hard for my eye to look at. Justify beyond just, I don't know. Okay. Then you need to talk about the actual piece itself that you chose. So you're going to choose one of their pieces of artwork, and you're going to talk about that piece. What's the name of the piece? What's the title, the date it was created? What's the medium? So that means material. Is it oil paint? Is it acrylic paint? Is it blood? What did they use? Is it cigarette butts stuck in a painting? What's the subject matter of the piece? Even in abstract, they will still sometimes have some kind of subject that they are going for that might not read. Describe how the masterpiece looks. You're just bullet pointing that, using your vocabulary. Explain the most important elements of the artwork that you see. Jackson Pollock would probably be movement and line. Explain the artist's message if they have one. And again, discussing your opinions of the artwork. So that's your first assignment. You're just comparing, contrasting two artists, two different pieces of work. So show me on your finger, how many artists? Dos. Right? Right? So two completely different artists. You cannot compare Jackson Pollock and Jackson Pollock. That's the same person. Okay. Assignment 2. Again, due Sunday, May 10th in Google Classrooms. And if you guys know, if it takes you a little bit longer, that's okay. I am fine on, giving you guys full grade as long as you get work done. You're going to choose one artist on this one from the slides that we went over. You are going to copy their style and recreate the piece of art using the best craftsmanship that you can, right? Filling up the page, not giving me stick figures, unless that is like actually part of the assignment. It is due in Google Classroom. As a reminder, if you need supplies, I am absolutely fine on giving you guys supplies. Just email me and I will show up and give you supplies. We have some abstract expressionism going on the screen. Nice. Okay, done. I don't want to close out on somebody's artwork. And we're done. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to give you the option to unmute yourself. So I'm returning the power to you guys so you can unmute if you like. Okay, so you guys can unmute if you have anything you want to say about the artwork we were looking at, if you have any questions.
I have a question in chat that I put down as soon as you said it.
Okay, it's the method that we are looking at. So it's only from those artists that we just saw.
I'm talking about painting, drawing, Legos.
Try and recreate it the best you can with what you have.
Okay, thank gods.
Try and get it as close as possible to what they did.
Okay.
So, anybody have an opinion on abstract expressionism?
It's more about emotions. So for me, it's very easy to see that what it actually means, depending on who the artist is.
That's
If it's just a
cool.
bunch of box, I'm just thinking about, okay, it's just about order or something, order and following the ways of life. But then I look at something like, hey, look, that looks like a samurai there. It's just meant to be about like his personal feelings overcoming things. It just depends on the viewer and depends on how you see it.
That's true.
Miss Rebecca,
Yes, Tyler.
are you okay if I just didn't get my chat message about just doing an abstract piece in my art journal?
You can absolutely try to stay away from markers, as none of our artists use markers from that time period.
Can we do each other?
Whoa.
Whoa, hold on.
No, we cannot.
Gosh darn it.
That wasn't even funny.
There we go.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, sit in the corner.
How are you holding up?
I'm doing well. I miss you guys.
My body wants to go into hibernation.
Don't do that. Stay busy. It's good for your brain.
What?
A bear.
I'm going to hit stop recording.